All right, everybody, welcome. It is Argent Alpha Unscripted. I'm talking with a guy I met outside of our mutual friend Nick Dante's store, Arcadia Meat Market in Phoenix. He's off of 40th Street in Indian School. And I met this guy, and we'll talk about that last name. But Sherwood Alger, welcome. Thanks for joining us today on Argent Alpha Unscripted.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Well, I'm just going to go back to when we met. I pulled up, I think it was last Friday, and I was stopping in to get some raw milk and some cut of grass-fed and finished beef. And you were out front with some products, and it's like, oh, what's this guy sampling? I mean, who doesn't love samples? And
Yeah.
I think I had some of your pizza and chicken nuggets, and most people go, oh, pizza and chicken nuggets. What's this guy schlepping fast food? And so let's just let's just talk about that a little bit, and then we'll zoom out, talk a little bit about your company, how it was named, and then maybe go deep diving into some of the other topics that caused you to start the company. But talk just a little bit about what when we met and what you were serving, and a little bit about the products.
Great. Yeah. So what I wanted to do when I started AmericanDreamFoodCo.com is provide comfort foods that people are familiar with, yet they are clean ingredients and 100% seed oil free. It's one of those things where it's very difficult to start an entirely new concept. So all of this the strategizing I've done over the years led me to believe that the best way to make an impact in the market and to disrupt the market is coming with something that is familiar, yet with my ethos, which is 100% clean ingredients and seed oil free. So what you tried was I do sourdough Neapolitan style pizzas with mesquite smoked ingredients. So it's a point of difference, something that stands out to be a little bit unique. Um, and it's with sourdough. It's I ferment for 4 days, so it's pretty much eats all of the sugar that's in any of the bread. So it's the lowest on the glycemic index for bread. It's actually good for the microbiome of the gut. So it's a multifaceted benefit to your health while eating pizza. And then the chicken nuggets, I source all of my amazing pasture raised organic chicken from Arcadia Meat Market as well. And that's what's in those chicken nuggets that are fried in Arizona grass raised beef tallow, which is the best tallow around. Um, and it offers a non-oxidized option for people. That's usually what causes the inflammation in the body is oxidation of these quote unquote seed oils that are supposedly safe. I have a different opinion, but I don't want to trash seed oils. I don't believe in trying to trash, uh, trying to make other people's products seem inferior to mine to make mine seem better. So I try to just tell people I choose to not use seed oils. I think it tastes better. I feel better.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I mean, I had samples of both. The pizza was fantastic. I mean, that crust that you've come up with, the flavor, the slight char on the bottom, and then I think I had the carnivore pizza, which was um, meats from Nick at Arcadia Meat Market. But talk a little bit about what was that particular topping on top of the carnivore.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So what I do a mesquite smoked tomatillo green chili salsa sauce as opposed to just regular red tomato sauce. Again, to infuse the flavor of Arizona in every bite. When I lived outside of Arizona, I couldn't get any mesquite anywhere. That I just missed that flavor so much when I didn't live in Arizona. So when I moved back, I'm originally from Arizona, and when I moved back here, I just couldn't get enough. Anything mesquite smoked, I just love that flavor. And the other benefit of I think of adding smoke to foods is you don't add calories. It's a way to get immense, unforgettable flavor without adding sugars and it's like the cleanest way to add flavor to food.
Hmm.
So the toppings on that particular pizza, that was the sauce, and then I mesquite smoked the Arizona grass raised ground beef. So there's a layer of ground beef. There's uh, a margarita pepperoni, which is there's no nitrates whatsoever in that. And then I get the hot Italian beef sausage from Arcadia Meat Market, and then I smoke that and then slice it sliced thin. And
Hmm.
that's what was on that pizza. It's a trifecta of three different meats that have a little bit different flavors. I think it's really well rounded with that sauce. I try to have like the perfect the hit all the senses. The only one that was missing on there was umami. A lot of people don't like mushroom, so that particular pizza didn't have any mushroom. But I have other variants. I do specialty pizzas that have mushroom in it, and I try to do the sweet, salty, spicy umami. I try to overcomplicate things. I try to make things um, as impactful as possible, yet like deliver the most unforgettable bite, but to have it still be healthy.
Hmm. Well, I think one of the things you've accomplished, if you think about a frozen pizza, and we've all had frozen pizzas in our life, the variance from the bottom priced one to the top priced one's not that large. And yours did not taste like a frozen pizza. I mean, I would have sworn it was right out of a one of those 800-degree ovens. That's what the flavor was like. So
That,
kudos to you for creating something that defies the stereotype. And then you did
thank you.
the chicken nuggets too, and those were I don't know what was on the outside, but again, it was like how these things should taste.
Yeah.
And so
So I can explain. It's basically a very simple. It's a very complex process to make them, but it's a very simple. It's a tempura batter. So it uses local Hayden flour mill flour, which I explained earlier. There's no bromate, no bleach, organic eggs, and spices, and that's really what's in the batter. It's about about half meat, half batter is about the rough equivalent. And I add literally nothing to the amazing organic pasture raised ground chicken that I get from Arcadia Meat Market. I just add spices. That's it. No fillers. That's you. Who knows what's in chicken nuggets? There's an ingredient called cellulose that's legal to use, which is essentially cardboard. And
mm,
that's used a lot as a filler. That's the food industry is extremely intelligent and very sneaky, and they just rename different ingredients to make it sound scientific when in reality it's something that they wouldn't want to actually list as an ingredient because if you see cardboard you wouldn't want to buy that, but it's
right.
cellulose. You have to look it up.
Yeah.
uh, have
No,
you ever
that's
used have you ever used the Yucca app? Do you know
yes.
that?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's such a great app. You just scan the product and it'll tell you like how it ranges on danger levels of everything. I think, and that's been out for years. I thought that was a really advanced app I like to use a lot.
Yeah, I like it. I think if I were I don't know what their product roadmap looks like, but they don't differentiate between conventionally grown and say grass fed or organic.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
at least the last time I used it, and so, but I think I used it most recently at Sprouts, and I was looking at skincare products and deodorant, and it was crazy the variance in the scores. And some of the kudos to Sprouts, some of their store brands rank the highest over the more expensive national health brands. And so there's a lot of sneaky stuff out there packaged as healthy for you, and yeah, paying attention to those details. And I kind of got turned on to personal healthcare products by my kids saying there's all this crap in shampoo, conditioner, lotion, facial moisturizers, etc. So, um,
Yeah, and the skin is the biggest organ, so it absorbs everything right into the bloodstream.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's one of those things. Well, yeah, it's not just food you have to worry about, unfortunately. And it's just odd. I was just watching RFK Jr. He was on the Joe Rogan Experience today. I only got halfway through it before we got on here, and he was talking about just some of the amazing, just the disturbing things that he's found out since getting into office. And not to get political, but I'm really excited about what's going on just for health. I don't think health should be politicized. I think
Yeah,
whoever's in office, I don't think should matter. I think it's, hey, they're trying to uh, make America healthy again, and I
right.
don't see an issue with that at all.
No, I don't either. And it's funny you mentioned Rogan. I think it was 2 weeks ago. RFK's wife, Cheryl Hines, and if you're a Curb Your Enthusiasm fan, you'll know who Cheryl is.
Oh, absolutely.
She was on, and during the interview, Bobby called her, and so she put him on speakerphone, and so
I
now,
watched
yeah,
every episode. I saw that one.
yeah, that was awesome. Well, hey, let's zoom out. Sherwood Alger.
Yes.
Talk about that last name. I almost said it, but go ahead. Talk a little bit about your history with that. With this.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, so I named my company American Dream Food Co. for multiple reasons. I think there's so you hear the American Dream come up every 2 seconds today. I think the left and the right try to use it, and that's I think where I fell because it's actually it's very it's close to my heart because I'm actually not a direct descendant from it's Horatio Alger Jr. He wrote a series of books in the late 1800s. It was basically a rags to riches tale, a series of books that later coined the phrase "the American Dream." Is essentially starting from nothing and making something out of yourself. Whether you're a native native to or a legal immigrant or however you come into this country, I think the American Dream is eligible for everybody. It's all through hard work, determination. So my great 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 grandfather was the 20th governor of Michigan, Russell A. Alger, and he is cousins with Horatio Alger. So I'm in the family tree somewhat because Horatio Alger Jr. didn't have any children himself. So that is my lineage to the coined phrase, the American Dream. So
Gotcha.
I've known that my entire life. My grandfather sat me down when I was about 5 years old and it showed me the family tree. He gave me the whole printout and explained how I have a lot to live up to in this life. And I've had that chip on my shoulder ever since. In my previous, I never understood the term "in my previous life" until now. In my previous life, in the beer, wine, spirits world for almost 20 years, I was very successful, selling other people's products, and then I had my wife had our first baby girl about 4.5 years ago, and I chose to be a stay-at-home dad, and because she made like 4 times the amount of money I did at the time, which is wonderful. So it made more sense for me to be the one to stay at home, and finally, about late last year, Arizona changed the laws to allow a lot more products to be made from home under the cottage food laws. So that's how I began my business under the cottage food laws. But now with the tremendous success and just the amazing response that I've seen from the market, I'm already transitioning into a commissary commercial kitchen, and that will greatly expand my scale and scope of what I can do and the customer base that I can reach. It's happened. My plan was by the end of 2026, and I've only had this company active for 6 months, and I'm already transitioning into commercial kitchen.
Wow. That's amazing. Congrats. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's the only time you ever hear me say transitioning.
I'm with you. Well, so that brings up a point. So take us back to I don't know if you want to call it an awakening or you took the red pill or whatever term, but pre-knowledge of this whole area of sourcing of food and the quality and why that matters to you now versus before. Just kind of walk us through that whole
Yeah,
process.
yeah. I've always been aware. I've gone through phases in my life where I've been healthier and then kind of made the excuse to allow myself, oh, I'm too busy to be healthy, too busy. The red pill moment for me was my wife having our daughter,
Mhm.
because then I had to worry about her life, not just mine, and was the extreme wake up call when you're in charge of another life, another being, and in every moment of everything. not just worrying if they're going to fall over, worrying how they're sleeping. You're in charge of everything that goes into the baby's body. So I literally, my children have never ever eaten highly processed food, at least in my presence.
Mhm.
I can only control them when they're in my presence. I do, when they're not in my presence, I do try to tell anybody watching them to make sure that they try to not get processed food. Just because I've done so much research, and what I did was in 2022, I was 311 pounds. So I'm 6 foot 4. So that's, I was able to hide it pretty well, but I was still a really big guy. And when I started when the red pill moment happened, when my wife had our daughter, I said, I need to also um, worry about myself because I need to be in the best human I can possibly be to not only be the best role model and just and protector and good. So that was basically the moment where I said, okay, I'm going to make sure all of us are eating extremely healthy and exercising. Um, and it took 2 years to get down to where I've maintained the last 3 years to 215. So now I went from 311 to 215 pounds, and I've maintained that for several years, and I'm never going back. I weigh myself every day, work out every day, not as much as I should. Um, I used to do kettlebells and every day, and do cold plunge every day. That's a little more sporadic now, but uh, you know, health is top of mind with every second I'm awake for myself, my daughter, and my entire family.
Yeah, that's great. I love hearing that story because obesity is an epidemic in this country, and it's one of the reasons I started Argent Alpha was I started with a couple different premises, but one of them was there's no benefits to being weak and fat if you're a man. There's just none, because sometimes I'll ask guys like, "Hey, give me all the benefits of being weak and fat," and they kind of pause, and it's like, well, there are none, and yet by the end of the decade, 75 to 80% of the U.S. population of men are going to be overweight or obese. And that's a whole other topic about what that's going to do to the healthcare system if we don't fix it. And like you mentioned, RFK is doing what he can at a very high level to start changing some fundamental things that hopefully will start shifting that. But
Yeah.
let's pick a couple topics underneath that. I think a lot of guys, I'll give you my experience. If they come into Argent Alpha, the biggest thing for many of them is to start the unlearning process of what they've been told. So, for example, the average guy who comes in is probably 20 to 40 pounds overweight. He's probably on 2 to 3 medications, more than likely a statin and maybe a blood pressure pill. He might be using a CPAP machine. And this has all been just like normal, protocols from the sick care community, which is all about, in my opinion, decline management. It's not about proactive health.
I
And
agree.
so getting them to understand and challenge some assumptions to then move into the role of CEO of their health. So you can't outsource your health. Well, you can. You're just going to be sick, fat, and tired, and diseased and chronically inflamed if you do that. And so that's part of the thing is getting them educated on unlearning a lot of things. And I think in your business, and nutrition is one of the pillars that we follow. Things like seed oils. So like the word seed doesn't sound like a bad thing. And they call it canola oil. Well, that comes off of a plant called rapeseed oil. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but that has no marketing ring to. So let's come up with
No.
canola. And so you think about these oils that a lot of them were made, and you don't have to bash them, but I can. They were made for industry. And when
Yeah.
I think it was post World War II in Canada, when the
Industrial lubricant.
yeah, when that need kind of shrunk dramatically due to the war ending, we got to do something with this machinery and this product. And there you go. You've got basically what ended up becoming canola oil and other vegetable oils. Talk a little bit about maybe the health consequences of a seed oil driven, highly ultra processed food driven diet, and just some of the health consequences, or just anything in general related to those things, just to help our listeners understand like something they may not be aware of.
Absolutely. Yeah. So every time I post a video online, it's almost instantaneous now where you get, it's almost like a bot where, because I always put 100% seed oil free, almost instantaneously there's a comment, uh, oh, seed oils are safe. There's many studies about it. Well, in a petri dish, before it's been heated up or cooked with, sure, it could possibly look stable after the extreme processes that it goes through. But once it is heated to use to cook your food, it oxidizes. And that, uh, I don't want to bore your audience with a lot of technical talk, but the amount of linoleic acids that it activates, it takes 2 years once these harmful acids that have been oxidized through the heating of these quote unquote seed oils, once it enters your body, it takes about 2 years for it to make its way out of your body. So even if you stop eating all seed oils today, you're going to still have the harmful effects in your body for another 2 years.
Wow.
So like, there's a term, the highly processed. Seed oils are pretty much the most highly processed out of everything, in my opinion, because they have to. A lot of it's basically seed oils. It's not even just seeds. It's mass bio bio waste that's left over from production of materials, say corn or whatever. There's always this discard. So what they do is like, hey, we want to turn that into profit. So they boil it down at very high temperatures, which definitely oxidizes everything, and then it becomes this putrid, very thick oil that needs to be then rinsed and cleaned with hexane and bleach, and then it has after it looks kind of clean, I guess, but it still smells putrid. Then it needs to be deodorized, and that's where the whole other slew of chemicals comes into effect. Where when it finally hits that shelf where you see this, it looks clean. They call it neutral oil that has no sense. But what I believe they don't do is they don't test for the residual chemicals that are left over from all these processes. Like, so there's, in my opinion, there's probably still some, you don't know because they don't actually test it at the end, conveniently. Wonder who got that rule passed, right? Um, but but yeah, they don't test for that. So I feel it's not only the oxidation that is extremely harmful to the body, it's these residual chemicals that could possibly be cancer causing. We don't want. I don't know if we want to go down. That's a whole other podcast about what could possibly be causing this significant spike in cancers that we have. I'm sure it's an amalgamation of quite a few different things from the environment, things that get absorbed through the skin. But particularly to come back to seed oils, it's amazing if you do a trial run. If anybody listening to this right now, I can only imagine anybody who's an Argent Alpha doesn't use seed oils, but if they do, or maybe somebody watching this podcast that isn't part of Argent Alpha, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Okay. That if you do a test, to take 1 month and just eliminate all seed oils, and it's very difficult to do because, again, it's in everything. They changed the name. On the ingredients, it doesn't have to say canola oil. It can be soy lecithin. They've come really good at disguising the words that have seed oils in them. But if you take a challenge to take a month off of seed oils, you will feel the difference. Even though it takes 2 years for it to get out of your system, like eventually, you don't have these aches and pains anymore when you wake up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not from getting old. That's a lot of it's from seed oil inflammation, from oxidation.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we did we have something we call SIFT, SIFT, single ingredient food trial, and it's a test like that where we say just run it one day, eat anything you want as long as it has one ingredient. And what people find is that a ribeye, an apple, lettuce, a sweet
Yeah.
potato, And even if you look at like half and half, there's milk products in there, but there's I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but carrageenan.
Yes.
And so I switched to heavy cream, and even heavy cream you got to look out for. So we found a grass raised, grass finished heavy cream, one ingredient. It's just cream. And so,
Yeah.
but when guys run that, they realize if you can't pick it from a plant like an apple or an orange or a banana, or it didn't have a face, a cow,
Yeah.
chicken, you probably shouldn't eat it. And so, um, anyway, it's like in today's modern life, it's probably a real challenge to live that way. Um, Imagine
Yeah.
going out to eat and trying to live on single ingredient food trails. But it proves the point that there's a lot of stuff in your in the food we eat, and if you can't pronounce it, that's a good sign that maybe you shouldn't eat it.
Yeah.
If there's more than one ingredient, look at all those secondary ingredients. A lot of times it's laden with sugar or some
Yeah.
form of sugar that says, may not say the word sugar, it might say high fructose corn syrup, or there's a lot of, like your point, there's a lot of words that just mean sugar or sugar substitute, which I think is almost
100%.
maybe even worse than sugar in some
Yeah.
cases.
And not all sugars are created equal as well.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that let's segue into sourcing because that's a big
And
part.
if you don't mind me adding to that,
Yeah.
so I've been watching a lot of your podcasts in the past week just to kind of familiarize myself with your guys' program, and I've been very impressed. And I love that you're saying, if it doesn't have a face or it doesn't come from the ground, don't eat it. And I agree. Like with the food I create, uh, you shouldn't eat it every day either. The food I create is for if you want to treat yourself a cheat day or something, but you still want something clean. That's where my food product comes in.
Mhm.
I don't want you eating my pizza every day. I don't want you eating my burgers every day. But when you want that special something and something clean, that's where my product comes into play. So I couldn't agree more with you. I usually stick to just beef and salt, or just a vegetable, no butter, or if it is, it's grass raised butter.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to add that caveat.
Yeah. No, I mean, the way I look at your products, um, we all like to indulge, but indulging doesn't have to mean bad for you.
No,
And so I think but usually that's usually the trade-off. And so,
yeah,
and I hear what you're saying. I mean, just that you
yeah,
probably shouldn't eat steak every day or chicken. You shouldn't eat any kind of food every single day.
yeah,
But hey, we're humans. We like to, who doesn't like pizza, right? I mean, it's like,
yeah.
so if you're going to
And
have it,
and and that's why I started. That's exactly why I started this company, because after getting the red pill, I started reading ingredients of everything in the supermarket, and I found there's literally no chicken nugget that I could possibly find that was 100% clean.
Mhm.
Like zero. Pizzas, zero. I couldn't find them. So I started making it my own and then sharing it with friends and family. And then when they passed that law, I became a cottage food purveyor, then was able to legally sell it. And then now commercial kitchen.
Mhm.
There's a tremendous what much more it just much more than I thought.
Mhm.
I'd like to follow the blue ocean strategy. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the red ocean is what everybody fights over. I was like, what, the blue ocean strategy, low barrier to entry, is there's a niche opportunity here, but not only just an opportunity for a business, but also to serve the community with healthier options. That's above and beyond the reason I started this company, is to help serve the community. It's not just the talking point for me. It's legit why I started this company, because I saw the results in myself and my family and wanted to have those options for other people as well. And it's been luckily welcomed into the community with the excitement.
Well, it's funny when you talk about sourcing, because that's kind of the adjacent to what you're talking about. If you
Mhm.
just step back and look at it and go, I lived most of my life in the Midwest in Minnesota and when I was a kid in North Dakota, and you think about it's January, especially when I go back to North Dakota, it would regularly be minus 30 Fahrenheit. I'm not exaggerating. That's not wind chill. Back then, we didn't have wind chill to like inflate the number. It was just minus 30, a lot of
Yeah,
times.
I used to live in New England, but it never got that cold.
Oh, and so you think about it, you can eat a banana in North Dakota in January, and you go, so you think about how food gets from wherever bananas are grown to you, and it's not even ripe yet. And you go, you say you have to start questioning. And so you start, and one of my oldest daughter was talking about this, like, what if you got all your food within just say 100-mile radius?
Yeah,
And people get into like you can't scale that and this, that, and all these arguments are like, well, we're not talking about feeding 8 billion people. Just talk about you and your family for a second. And it's another experiment to run. Like, well, what if you had to get all of your food from within a 100-mile radius? And your radius is a little larger, but it's state of Arizona, I think, is how you're
yes,
trying to stay at least right now. Um,
100%.
talk a little bit about sourcing and why that's important, and what do people not really know or think about when it comes to sourcing?
Yeah, I like to just remind people that, cooking beef tallow and sourcing everything from right around you is what people had were forced to do before refrigeration. It's like we're going back to the old ways of doing things. Now we're very, very fortunate that we have such amazing farmers all around us. So sourcing from within 100 miles uh, of you, especially if you follow the mantra of, if it comes from the earth or it has a face, it's extremely easy, especially with amazing purveyors like Arizona Grass Raised Beef Company. I mean, they have, I'm very biased, but I've tried a lot of different Arizona beef, and they're phenomenal.
Mhm.
So I use them not only because they're local, it's because they're the best in my opinion for what I'm trying to achieve.
Mhm.
And Hayden Flour Mill, they happen to be local, but they also don't spray glyphosate. They don't use bromate. They don't use bleach. I'm not sure if every state has that. So we're very fortunate here in Arizona to be able to make it a lot easier. I can only imagine in different states. In Minnesota, it'd probably be pretty difficult to get any flour that's local, anything within 100 miles. Where a lot of people in Yuma, like most of the lettuce for the United States is grown in Yuma. There's a lot of greenhouses down there, and 100 miles into the California. They're just we're really close to almost like the breadbasket of the West Coast. There's so much produce and everything grown right around us, to where we're really fortunate in Arizona. It made it easier.
Yeah.
And just
No, you're right. And you told me something last week. We were talking about Hayden Flower. Is it Hayden Flower Mills? Is that what it's called?
Yes, Hayden
Yeah.
Flour Mills. Yep, they're also the farm. They grow their own. They grow it on, then they mill it. Like Barrio Bread and Slice, for example, they get it from the same farm. I think they've partnered up with them, but they mill their own flour instead of Hayden Flour Mill milling theirs.
Okay.
They mill their own, but it's from the same source.
Okay. Well, one of the things I asked you was, hey, I love the company, I love the story, and you educate me about them. And I asked, but it doesn't say organic on there. And if you're even familiar with organic and the benefits of it, you might pass on that product. But talk a little bit about why that might be a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, so in order to be, again, if I'm not mistaken, in order to be considered certified organic, it's just a ridiculous amount of money you have to pay just for that insignia. And if I'm not mistaken, they follow the guidelines are similar to organic. I think even surpassed it, but I just don't think they pay that extra money to get the insignia, if I'm not mistaken. But furthermore, they use ancient grains, and which is not genetically modified, and it's been grown in this region for thousands of years.
Hmm.
And that is actually not just Hayden Flour Mill, but I believe this, a lot of the different pinto beans, a lot of the different produce, even down in the Tucson region, have been the same for thousands of years. So I'm not sure if you're aware of this, that Tucson was the first, now San Antonio is the second, um, only two cities in the entire United States that was awarded the uh, World City of Gastronomy for the World UNESCO designation for gastronomy because of how many ancient grain, ancient lineage, produce that have been unchanged for thousands of years that are just completely unchanged, and they've been available in this area uh, consistently.
Mhm.
And that's very rare in the entire, like not even New York, not LA, Tucson, and then San Antonio a second. And it's based because of the ingredients that we can source locally. That was the reason for that designation, not just because there's amazing restaurants down there. It's because of where they source their ingredients from, and it's all local.
Yeah, that's an interesting
So
point.
the benefits of ancient grains, yeah, genetically, not all GMOs are created equal, and I don't think it's all evil, but there's something that's to be said with eating something that hasn't been genetically modified. Like if you look at what carrots started at as thousands of years ago compared to what they are now, or potatoes, or broccoli, even corn, like you would not recognize it.
Hmm.
They're completely different. For example, the chickens that I get from Arcadia Meat Market, they're organic and pasture raised. The wings are very small, and yeah, I think people have a misconception of, oh, I want those big jumbo wings. What they don't realize, how it gets jumbo, it's full of antibiotics and who knows what else.
Hmm.
And so real chicken had smaller wings, and real corn isn't is plentiful. It's smaller grains. It's harder to grow. It's not hasn't been modified to be easier to get the most out of it for the least like the typical corporate model, right? They
Yeah.
want to have maximum profitability and minimal effort, right? And doing things the hard way by using these ancient grains is the only way to really have those benefits of not having ingesting genetically modified organisms that may or may not be the best for your body.
Hmm. Well, it's funny. I'm going off memory, but in the last 2 years, Joe Rogan had the founder of White Oaks Pastures on, and I can't remember if they're in Georgia or what state,
I
but
watched it.
what's that?
I watched it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and they somebody said like, well, what about scalability? And he said, no, our model's not scalable, but it's repeatable. In other words, every community could have a White Oaks pastures concept, and so this ties into that whole 100-mile sourcing kind of model, and you're really decentralizing food sourcing into a local model. And I don't think any of us believe it's going to happen for the globe, but it's like it's got to start somewhere. And I think that's you're playing into that. You're a player in that ecosystem of local sourcing, the quality of it. It ties into a lot of what I think RFK would like to get to if he gets a chance
Yeah.
to get after it. Um, Talk a little bit about one of the criticisms of this whole movement is, well, it's too expensive and it costs more, and I know you're not buying off the food, you're not buying off the Cisco truck,
No.
your product. Talk a little bit about the cost of sourcing and just from a business perspective a little bit to help educate us on how you're approaching that challenge.
Okay. Yeah. So when it's kind of a story. When I first got when I first started my business, I got my EIN number, and I was like, okay, great. Now I can go into Restaurant Depot. And I walked in there, and my jaw dropped. I was like, I can't buy anything in here. Just reading the ingredients, I was like, and almost nothing, pretty much nothing was organic. So I began the journey of doing research and trying to search out uh, small family farms like um, Crow's Dairy. I use their goat cheese, make an amazing goat cheese dip. Sometimes I put the goat cheese on the pizza. Um, and it's twice, 2, 3 times more expensive because they don't have the scalability, but it's just significantly better in knowing that it's not full of poisons and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's much more difficult to you basically have to single source at my level. Once you have a market, it makes it a little bit easier. They deliver to you, but for me, I have to go hunt them down currently. And yeah, but it's the right thing to do, and that's why I do it.
Hmm.
So all the extra work and effort that it goes into sourcing the right ingredients for the right reasons um, is the reason I do it. It could be it's not the best for the profitability model. I'm definitely an entrepreneur that is out to it's a business. We definitely want to make profit, but we want to do it the right way.
Hmm.
And I think there's more important things when serving your community with healthy food than just the bottom line. So, my bottom line is to make sure it's clean, it's safe, it's healthy, and local. And it's going to take extra work to build that ecosystem. I feel when we finally hit a place where I've scaled up enough. But again, I don't plan on going outside of Arizona anytime soon. Arizona's big enough. I don't see that as limiting myself. I see it as wanting to play my crucial role in this community, and it's Arizona's big enough to make millions in sales and still serve your community.
Yeah.
So I don't.
And the reality is, asking the scalability question to me is the wrong question of any business because um, there's only so many people that are going to buy. Let's just go to GM, a Cadillac down to an Oldsmobile, down to a Chevy, down to a used car. And so like there's different segments of the market. And so I think where I kind of rationalize paying more for high quality groceries is I just eat out less because there's very few restaurants that have ingredients that would fit into anything like we're talking about. And so
Yeah,
one meal that you miss at a restaurant, I think offsets any sort of premium you're going to pay at shopping at places like Nick's, Arcadia Meat Market, buying your products.
yeah,
And you're starting to see a few restaurants. Like one of the ones I like is Chef Jason's place, Perception, right off Camelback and Central. I mean,
yeah,
he's all about the same local. Whenever possible, it's local. He'll buy a grass-fed, grass-raised whole cow and just
yeah,
finish it on premise. And then this week might be sirloin, and when the sirloin's gone, no more sirloin. You might get the ribeye next, or the flank steak, or
yeah.
whatever. And so you're starting to see a little bit of this in the restaurant area. And when you start eating clean and you start going out to a place that has food that you like, but you haven't been there for a while, your body will tell you, it will react.
Yeah.
Man, it's like we don't need to get into the after effects, but let's face it,
Sure.
you can tell when something is has substandard ingredients in it when you've started to clean up your diet and detox and get that stuff out of your system.
Almost immediately too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's precisely why ever since taking the red pill, our dining out budget is almost zero. It's extremely rare for us to go out, and that's why I created the frozen food concept so that when people want a little a familiar snack but don't want to go out to get it, they have it right there in their house ready to go. Um, and they still have that option. It familiarizes themselves with eating out or going to a fast food place, but you created it yourself in your home for a fraction of the price and know that it's healthy. Um, yeah, but it is nice to see that more restaurants are starting to listen to the demand of the consumers, and people are looking for that now more than ever. And especially with GLP-1's introduction, you see a lot of people just eating a lot less, period. And that's another reason I created American Dream Food Co. is, as I'm sure you noticed, the pizzas are Neapolitan style, about 9 inches, and that's for a good reason. Not only is that the traditional size of a Neapolitan style pizza, but it's also portion control.
Mhm.
You can even share that with two people, or even cut off. You use Neapolitan style scissors and just cut off one slice and heat it up, and you're good. That's it's one of those things that you take in consideration is the portion sizes are really dropping as well. Maybe protein portions have increased, but just overall consumption of meals of uh, due to GLP-1s, I think is decreasing in the people that are taking it, of course.
Yeah, and I think GLP-1s, I mean, they're if you get into the longevity community, doing smaller microdoses, there's a lot of health benefits. That's different than the obese crowd who's trying to get unlocked. And I could see where there might be an application to it, but I think there's this slippery slope with, hey, I don't need to change my lifestyle. I can just take a drug and everything's, it's like, that's not going to work. You're going to have digestive issues, bone density issues. You're going to lose skeletal muscle mass.
Yeah,
You might see the scale drop, but your health probably, who knows if it's going to get better. I would bet against it personally, but
I agree. And for the record, I didn't take any GLP-1s to get into shape. No, not against anybody who did. I chose not to, and I've heard a lot of issues, intestinal issues, and I think just let food be thy health. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that saying. And you put good in, you get good out.
well, hey, one thing, and I'm speaking with partial recall here. Somebody told me that if you buy American cheese, there's an ingredient in it that's manufactured by Pfizer.
I bet it's because I think they call it processed food. I don't even know if they can say cheese like that, the actual like the little single slices that you're talking about.
Well, no, this is like in general. There's I don't have a Jamie like Joe Rogan does, but um,
Yeah.
a Pfizer cheese ingredient. I'm gonna see if I can find it here because
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure you're aware just while you're looking it up, that the tobacco industry, they bought a lot of food companies, and they took those same scientists who uh, was able to manufacture certain chemicals that they put into the cigarettes to mutate a receptor cell in your brain to ask for a cigarette all the time to make a consistent customer. Then they took those same scientists and then applied it to the food industry.
Mhm.
If I'm not mistaken, I don't want to get sued, but
No, it's
it's my opinion.
I found it. It says many. And again, somebody can fact check me on this if they want. So it could be off slightly, but many Americans are surprised to learn that roughly 90% of cheese made in America, I think, it contains a lab-made enzyme developed Pfizer, and it doesn't have to be labeled. It's known as fermentation-produced chymosin, otherwise, referred to as FPC. And so it's a genetically engineered version of rennet, an enzyme used to coagulate
Yeah,
during cheese making. So that's again one of those things like I never knew that. I read labels all the time. Well, that's not even listed. And so we've started to switch to European cheeses just to like eliminate that as a factor. Again, I don't think it's present in some of those, but the whole point of that story is
yeah,
is you got to be CEO of your health. You've got to start asking questions. And one of the things I differentiate internally is amateurs ask for answers, pros ask better questions. And so we got to get better at asking the questions because that's going to start revealing things that, oh, I didn't know that. And this is part of this whole awakening on food sourcing, ingredients, what goes in our food. And I think today the law was passed in Arizona that's related to health, a little more on informed consent. I don't recall the name of it. I just read it, but it was like really good for us as individuals to protect our God-given right to make choices when it comes to our health versus them being mandated like by an employer or that sort of thing. So again, this is
yeah.
weird that this has become political. It's like when did medical autonomy become a political thing? Why can't I make choices for my health? You do what you want. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do. So I think that's another thing that 6 years ago we weren't having this conversation. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, literally 6 years ago, February, March, or February of 2020, we were all just kind of cruising along, and then stuff hit the fan, and I think there's been a lot of stuff revealed since then. So
I'll never be the same. I didn't realize how strong local government was until the again, to quote you, that shall not be named, that shall not be named. But just seeing the power of local government versus federal, my eyes were opened.
Yeah.
That's when I started paying more attention to politics, more than any time before.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. Well, hey, let's wrap up with any sort of like either, I don't know, any advice you have for whether it's a man over 50 or just people in general when it comes to food. I mean, you lost close to 100 pounds naturally, sourcing. I mean, whatever's in your head right now that you'd say, hey, if somebody could walk away with something tangible and actionable today, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say it aligns a lot with, the mantra that the culture you've built within Argent Alpha. You know, I agree with a lot of what I've heard from your podcast that I've been kind of binge watching this past week. Just you want, I definitely recommend every morning, weighing yourself first thing in the morning, just to see where you're at, and that kind of gives you the tempo for the day. Even though you can be water weight or whatever, you can't really feel bad about yourself as you gain a couple pounds, but it's just remind yourself where you're at and realize that and at any second you can change your habits like that, and that you have the power over your body. It's all due to how your mental toughness, and just to remind yourself that you are again, to quote you, the CEO of your health, and you have the ability to let food be thy health. You determine what goes in your body, and just have a plan. Have a plan for the day. If you weigh yourself and you're a little below or above where you want to be, make the adjustments that day. It's all about small steps. Give yourself realistic goals so that you make them achievable, and so that you don't feel bad about not achieving these goals. When you have small wins throughout the day, it makes everything possible.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And I like what you said. If you have agency, you have the ability to make a choice. Nobody's stuffing the double cheeseburger in your mouth or the five IPAs or the donut, whatever the vice is, it's a choice. That doesn't mean it's easy. And that's why I think making those mini steps, substitutions, go read James Clear's Atomic Habits. Anybody listening to this, if you want a guide on how to do this stuff,
Yeah.
it's a great guide. And one thing too, to follow up on your recommendation on weighing yourself, one of the things I like to do is weigh yourself daily and then track your number, but then take your average weight for the week. It takes out the daily fluctuations, and then just track your your weekly average. That'll give you a better indicator if you're on track. Then you get out of the daily
Yeah.
yay or bummer. It's like this mood swing thing is I see why people get anxiety over daily weigh-ins, but if you have a right perspective, if you zoom out a little bit, you can put it into perspective.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So, but I agree with you. Well, hey, Sherwood, thanks for joining me today. It was great. I look forward to seeing you over at Nick's place. We might be having one of your pizzas tonight. Depends on my wife and I. It is National Protein Day today. I just found out. So on February 27th. So I might have to run over to Nick's place and get some meat, throw on the grill just to make sure I hit my protein target for the day. But thanks again for joining us. I appreciate it.
That's wonderful, Scott. And thank you so much. And, like when we first met, I think everything happens for a reason. So the universe brought us together to have this podcast, and hopefully it'll be, we can do it again in the future.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Scott, thank you so much.